Fourth contact, Saturday, February the 15th, 1975, 48 minutes past 1 a.m. Semjase. In the last days I have caught many strong thoughts from you. You occupy yourself enormously with the most diverse things, but for your own safety I am not allowed to answer all your questions. Billy, I thought you told me that you would not penetrate into my thoughts unless it was urgently necessary. Semjase, sure. I also did not penetrate into your thoughts, but nevertheless, you directed yours so intensively towards me that I just had to catch them. You have a phenomenal power of thinking that only very few human beings have already as a characteristic to them. Billy, I had not thought of that, and I did not want to bother you. Semjase, it is quite all right that way, because it allowed me to occupy myself with your questions, which unfortunately I am not allowed to answer in as much detail as I personally would like. I myself, and all others as well, trust you completely, but there are Earth humans with the most diverse means of Gewalt, or force, at their disposal, who could elicit every secret from you. I certainly know that you would defend yourself against it, but they might still elicit certain things from you. Therefore, we must exercise precaution and care in every respect. But now pose your questions freely and at your discretion, because I do not want and cannot answer you dictatorially by making your sequence of questions my own. Now, Semjase is very capable of telepathy, and so she picked up his thoughts very strongly, but it's like learning a language. Some people speak a language better, some not so good, and so she it was probably like screaming or so that arrived at her, and so she picked it up, and in one case I was with Billy in his living room, and there was some issue, and he tried to contact someone. She was the only person here in the station they have in Switzerland and somewhere in the mountains, and he said, I cannot reach her, because she was not so capable of telepathy and not so good at it yet, and so he couldn't contact her and had to wait until she would come. And so that's kind of a level of discussion which we are not capable of. Billy writes that if you want to learn telepathy, you would have to meditate a lot, really very, very much, and meditate correctly for like 7 years and like all day, and that you would have like the basis to learn telepathy. And it also shows that that there are people who would use force on this planet to extract information from him for reasons of power, and so they cannot tell him everything, and so this kind of secrecy is for his protection, and but it also shows how power obsessed certain people are and how dangerous certain organizations are which we think are defending us, but they are actually working against us and against humanity, and that they have to be careful and exercise precaution. And she also says that I do not want and cannot answer you dictatorially by making your sequence of questions my own. This is like, we often try to convince someone of one's own opinion or thoughts, and she doesn't do that. That shows how much further developed they are in their communication. Yeah. And it also shows the power that lies in thoughts, you know. It's still few people are aware what an enormous energy source that is, and that your thoughts do count. It's so you're the summary of your thoughts and feelings. So and the thoughts always precede the feelings. So it's important what you think, and to learn to control that, and to and also to learn to think critically, of course, you know. Only when you can think critically, that's independent thinking. Everything else is pretty much that you are just are following what others have given you. So that is much more important than it appears to be. Billy, thank you, Semjase. You speak perfect German. Where did you learn to master this language? Semjase, a good question, which is, however, easy to answer. Just like the Earth human, we also have to learn a language, except that this is much easier for us and causes us less effort. We are in possession of all Earth languages that are presently spoken or were ever spoken at an earlier time. This means that we have accurate records of them in the most diverse forms. Language training courses, as you would call them, were compiled from them. This work is done by linguists and machines similar to those you call computers. Then other machines of a similar kind serve to transmit and enter the language into us. This means that we get connected to such a machine or apparatus, through which we then receive the desired language transmission. This occurs through a hypnosis-like state induced by the machine. As a result, the language terms and senses are implanted and registered. This process takes 21 days. After that, we need another 9 to 10 days in order to speak the language correctly. This means that we then have to practice speaking and pronouncing in the right way with the help of the apparatuses and the linguists. To learn a language, we need 30 to 31 days in this manner. In this regard, the Earth humans, particularly so-called language institutes, already work in a similar manner, but they implement their language courses with audio tapes. This is already the first path toward building and using apparatuses and machines like ours. You do also already work on such computers in various places. That is about how I imagined everything, Billy says. Semjase, I know. So they cannot learn a language like in Matrix or so in seconds, you know. It takes time. They also have to learn a language, and it takes them about for 30 to 31 days. And if someone like on Earth is really talented, then some people also learn a language in a month or two. So it shows they're human, but they have, of course, they live healthier and have probably, in general, healthier brains, and therefore also higher capacity and better memory. But we can also develop all that. And some of us also have like fantastic memories. So that they can learn a language very quickly. Billy, my next question relates to the fact that you explained to me at our first meeting that the Earth humans would not be able to travel to the deep and real outer space unless they would invent another method of propulsion. I can only imagine here that with this drive you mean that it must be, for example, a beam propulsion system, a hyperdrive, so to speak. In my opinion, this would have to be a drive that somehow alters the material matter, presumably when the speed of light is exceeded and the beam ship is thereby hurtled into a hyperspace in which space and time paralyze themselves, as you have already explained. I suppose that space and time collapse in such a way that they are completely cancelled out. Semjase, you would make a great scientist, and if one considers that all your knowledge is based on autodidactic work, then that means a phenomenality. You are absolutely right with your assumptions. To traverse the real outer space, a drive is needed that exceeds the speed of light many times over. But this drive can only come into operation when the speed of light is reached. It follows from this that another drive regulates the normal speed up to that of light. This means thus that a beam ship must have two drives. First, the normal drive, which allows acceleration up to and below the speed of light, and second, the hyperdrive, as you call it. So the drive that generates millions and milliards, billions it would mean, billions of times of speed of light, thus the hyperspeed, by which hyperspace is broken into. A space in which every mass expands in relation to the increase in speed. As a result, time and space collapse and become the null time and the null space. This means space and time simply cease to exist. And this is exactly what allows the fact that distances of countless light years can be rushed through in fractions of a second without a time shift occurring. So this baffles me every time that through technology you can paralyze space and time and enter into a timeless and on null time and also where there's no space. That it's not like in some movies where they fly through wormholes and which takes seconds or even minutes, It's not like that. You hardly notice it. It's just fraction of a second once you enter hyperspace. And it's not really a hyperspace. It's spaceless and timeless. It's paralyzed. It ceases to exist, actually. And that is difficult to imagine, I think. yeah, and then you can travel these huge distances, you know. Billy, so this means that just as much time passes for a beam ship and its occupants as it does on the home planet or on another planet or star? Semjase, of course. So for example, when we leave our Pleiades and need around 7 hours to reach Earth, then only 7 hours pass on our home planet and on Earth as well. We need this long of a time because we first have to fly beyond the planetary ranges with the normal propulsion and can only go to hyperspeed once very far out in space. We then also come back from hyperspace far outside of your solar system and fly here with the normal drive. We are never allowed to break into hyperspace while too close to a planet. Billy, I understand. The breaking into hyperspace would presumably also tear one or more planets into the superspace and spew them back out as deadly projectiles when the beam ship bursts out of it. Perhaps even various huge comets have become raging and dangerous objects speeding through outer space in this way, due to the fault of irresponsible starfarers. Semjase, you're partially right. The hyperspace really must be broken into only very far out in hyperspace, because otherwise planets would be dragged into it. Also, regarding the exit from hyperspace, you were thinking absolutely right. It is also a fact that some comets originated in this manner, but only some, because most of them have been led onto their dangerous path by other and natural events. So you are only partially right about this, if you assume that all comets are created in this manner, as you might have suspected. But the fact is that such incidents are due to irresponsibility, as this does exist throughout the entire cosmic space, not just on the Earth. And irresponsibility also exists when highly developed intelligences make their first hyperspace trials and carry them out too close to planets. The recommendation for safety has indeed to be calculated, and it states that the hyperspeed may only be initiated 153 million kilometers away from the nearest planet. So that's almost 100 million miles. Billy, that is very interesting, but I did not suppose that all comets originated in the manner mentioned. But how does a hyperdrive actually work? And what about the normal drive? So they have to be 153 million kilometers is about the distance from the sun to Earth, so 8 light minutes I think it is. And just to imagine that a planet can be sucked into this energy field and be spoon out somewhere else. It's just incredible what kind of energy such a small beam shift can create. That's still baffling me every time, kind of, that you have to be 8 light minutes away from any other planet or star to initiate that, and also be that far away from another planet where you arrive. It's incredible technology, completely beyond ours, and also for a very long time. So when you hear stories or read stories where in secret, we have travel to other planets or so, or I mean far out in space or so. This is all nonsense. Hyperspace travel is still very far away, and time travel also. It's very difficult to accomplish, and also one should take the necessary precautions. So she lets us know of the dangers with hyperspace travel. So Semjase, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to tell you any details about that, about the hyperspace drive. If the Earth scientists had more specific details, then they would solve their propulsion problems in a very short time. But this is neither in our nor in the cosmic interest, because the Earth human is still not free and not mature enough to fly around in the outer space. However, at the given time, which is not too far away anymore, he will find the solution of his problem all by himself. I may only tell you so much, that very many of your scientists are nevertheless already on the right track and are theoretically working and researching on the necessary drives. I may also tell you that these also concern drives that are already known in their basic features within your initiated scientific circles as light emission drives and as tachyon drives. The light emission drive serves as normal drive and has the function of moving the beamship to planets or within their vicinity, up to 153 million kilometers of distance, so up to the safety limit. Beyond that, the tachyon drive, among other things, is put into operation if greater distances are to be bridged. This is one of the hyperdrives capable of controlling hyperspace as well as space and time. We call these two drives by other names, but the sense remained the same. We have a different language than the Earth humans, and so I have to explain it to you in the terms that you understand. That makes sense to me, Billy says, but I do not understand how such a drive functions. I know the basic concepts of an emission, and I know what tachyons mean, but I cannot imagine or guess the actual process with a drive resulting from them. Can you tell me more details about that? No, I'm not allowed to do that, because by doing so I would reveal the secret of the whole drive and also the generation and utilization of the tachyons, but also the secret of the emitting drive. So they have these two drives, the light emission drive, which they travel in our atmosphere and also like up to the speed of light, until they get to the point at the safety beyond the safety limit, and then they can turn on the tachyon drive and bridge like huge distances. I mean thousands and millions of light years in an instant. Also, these tachyons are, she also says that there's basically a secret science and like what we know in the public. For example, the tachyon drive, the tachyons are still, they're not sure if they really exist, they haven't found them yet, and so on. Then that might be true, but since they're working on this concretely, and this is already 50 years ago, so this light emission drive, there seems to be, that might be something which they already have in secret to some degree. And we are just not told about it. Of course, you know. Billy, thank you. That is enough, because I do not want to push you. But there's one more thing that interests me. If I look over everything and think over it carefully, then the shape of the beamship does not play a major role, but a disc-shaped ship should be the ideal form, because it offers the least resistance aerodynamically in the area of an atmosphere, which certainly should also be the case in the water. Billy has been also underwater with Quetzal and Swat and so on, and they can travel incredible speeds also underwater. Semjase, sure, you have gotten to the heart of the matter again. Basically, through the shape, though the shape really plays no role. However, the disk shape guarantees the least resistance in an atmosphere, and it furthermore has the largest possible areas to make the drives on or through it fully effective. So the drive works not like with a rocket where there's just one opening where then the thrust comes out, but that this light emitting propulsion works over the whole surface of the craft. And of course I have no idea how that works, but quite impressive. Billy, that is clear to me, but how is it possible that a beamship can reach tremendous speeds in the gravitational field of a planet or in its atmosphere without it burning up or the passengers simply falling victim to the immense inertial force? Semjase, that is very easy to explain and is also not a secret anymore to the Earth humans, at least not to the scientists. Well, again, of course, only scientists who work in secret about it, you know. The beamship is surrounded by a radiation protection belt, which allows every waft of air to be diverted immediately without displacing it. Exactly the same thing also happens in the outer space, which is only teeming with inconspicuous minute particles. So there's a lot more particles and in outer space than we are aware of. Thus, this radiation protection shield has the function of protecting the beamship against all external influences and resistances without destroying or displacing anything that collides with the shield. All things intruding or offering resistance simply get deflected without causing a displacement. A displacement would in fact already mean resistance and lift the possibility of the unlimited speed. Through this radiation protection shield, granting a sliding off, another important effect is triggered, which is of great significance and of vital importance to the passengers. As a result of the sliding off technology of the radiation protection shield, the gravitational pull of a planet is neutralized at the same time. However, this does not mean that it is simply destroyed, displaced, or cancelled. In the same way, the air as well as any radiation or particles or magnetism, etc., are simply diverted, with the result that the normal gravitational force and attraction force prevail in the beamship. This means that a beamship of the Earth harbors exactly the same attraction force inside as it also prevails on the Earth. This attraction force of a planet is not always equally strong, by the way, but is subject to a certain change, something which will be noticed by your scientists in foreseeable time. So the gravitational field on Earth is not equal in all everywhere. By the sliding off at the radiation protection shield, that is, the sliding off of the gravitational force, that is, the attraction force, the beamship practically becomes an independent miniature planet which can to almost the speed of light fly through any atmosphere without risk. And since the attraction force of the planet concerned no longer has any influence on the beamship, the passengers also feel as normal and unweighted as if they were on the planet itself, always provided, of course, that the planet itself corresponds to their anatomical capabilities and is not subject to greater attraction forces. In the beamship itself, the attraction force is tuned to the passengers, of course, and is completely controllable. When passengers of beamships from other worlds move on planets that are foreign to them and hostile to them in terms of atmosphere or attraction forces, then they use spacesuits and small transportable devices that produce exactly the same radiation protection shield for the respective being as it is characteristic for the beamship. Billy asked Billy about it, what it feels like in the beamship, and he said that you don't even feel when it's moving. So he only notices when he sees like movement outside that the beamship is moving. You feel like it's stationary. Also, when you're flying upside down, you have no sensation of being upside down, and you can fly at a high speed in the right angle turn. You would feel it's stationary. You would only notice it by looking outside or on the monitors, which are like holographic monitors, not like our monitors. Yeah. So that's a pretty awesome technology. And this with this displacement, he explained it to me, and that's also will be in another video. Well, that's just in German. But yeah, it's I don't get it. I mean, when one object is moving through another, even if there's a protection shield, the molecules, the air molecules, cannot fly through you. They have to fly around. So there is displacement. Even if there's a shield, then the shield should heat up. Or when the molecules, the air molecules behind it kind of crash together, there should be like a supersonic sound. So... But maybe you understand it better, and leave it in the comments. You know, I would really like to understand it, but it's I don't. it's just baffling, you know, this technology. Yeah, but we in secret there seems to be really, we seem to be quite far already now. There's this witness in the Disclosure Project, Michael Harari or so, and rather recent witness, and he said that he and a few other soldiers in the jungle of Indonesia saw an object like 90 meters or so in diameter, something like that, and it rose up without sound, or just a slight humming sound, and then it just shot off like a bullet, and the leaves of the trees hardly moved. So and there was no supersonic sound. So I don't know if he's telling the truth, but he seemed to be truthful to me. And yeah, so in secret, and the people they encountered close to this object were certainly like secret soldiers of Earth, and they spoke English and so on. You know, not extraterrestrials or so. So there's in secret there's a lot going on, which we are not told. Billy, that is very detailed and plausible, but can you give me technical details about the construction of such a device? Semjase, unfortunately I'm not allowed to. However, I can assure you that your scientists are fundamentally already working on such devices, and the point in time is no longer very far away for them to produce them. While she talks about flying at great speeds in the Earth's atmosphere or near up to the speed of light, you know, but bridging tachyon drive, that is still far in the future for us. However, it is within the framework of evolution that the Earth human being still first has to develop a lot regarding consciousness and spirit before he will solve these secrets and not simply use them to the detriment of others. Hopefully we do that, you know, become more peaceful and not bring war and destruction to other planets at some point. Even then, however, there's still the great danger that the barbaric Earth human will use his technical knowledge and ability and his technical achievements maliciously and might greedily to satisfy his desires for might. This has happened and continues to happen time and again with other beings of other worlds, not only with the Earth human. So this is obviously a universal problem that wherever humans or races, civilizations develop high tech to travel throughout the universe, that they have to be watched carefully, and how they behave and if they are a danger to others or not, and so on. Yeah, so you could say this is like universal politics. And the technology is always the key. You know, it's England was so powerful because they ruled the waves, the seas with their ships. They were technologically further developed and had a empire the sun never set upon. So just because they had better ships and so technology is always the key for tyranny, or most of the time. But when the time comes, then he attains the necessary technology to fly not only to Earth's moon, but to other planets. Then he must not do so unweightedly and in the hope that he will always remain victorious. In the outer space itself, dangers of various sizes lurk, and also other inhabitants of worlds are not simply left helpless in the face of an attack of another race. There could follow deadly defeats and complete enslavement of the Earth human, which would be equivalent to a falling back into primeval times. But it could also be that the planet Earth becomes completely destroyed because the technical prerequisites for this are already created in the outer space, with very many humane and inhuman races up to the last relative perfection. If the Earth human wants to carry his barbaric imperiousness and greed for might out into the outer space, then he must reckon with his complete destruction, and no other planetary beings will rush to help him. But the Earth human being must also prepare to defend himself against malicious intruders, which he can only accomplish, however, through a complete unification of all the people of your planet. So this is really the key. And that we have to establish peace, and people should be told the truth, that we are not alone in the universe, and only then, if we are united, we can develop the technology to defend ourselves. The secret developments are counterproductive and are only serving the greed of power-hungry people. And it would be our best protection, actually, if we collaborated. The dangers from the outer space are great and are lurking in all corners of the galaxies. Mostly these are inhumane, might-greedy beings who know no feelings, or only inferior ones, or those very badly out of control of the good human nature. Others, however, know how to defend themselves, and they inevitably always do this radically. If indeed a major war were to shake the outer space, then entire galaxies might be destroyed. All it would take would be wars of entire systems, which could then result in their own destruction. That is why peace is cared for and is, if necessary, enforced with logical or illogical force. This must be taken into consideration by the Earth human when he will be controlling the outer space in the near future. Well, this is not so near, it's still further. For us, for our lifetimes, it's still further away, that we go into outer space. Other world races do not let themselves be senselessly warred or driven into exile, servitude, and exploitation, as is customary among the peoples of the earth. They will defend themselves by Gewalt or force, and still for a long time they will be vastly superior to all the technological possibilities of the earth humans. Where this is not the case, however, they are often under the protection of further and higher developed intelligences whose techniques reach the final relative perfection. Billy, well, those are very nice prospects. Well, that's ironic, of course. And so best would be, of course, if we would collaborate and united we can develop our technology much, much faster instead of competing all the time, which is much slower development. And also it has to be taken into or considered that there are that other civilizations might be under protection of highly developed intelligences. So and it shows, like, if you look at Costa Rica, they don't have a military. They are under the protection of the United States, and nobody dared to invade them. So it does work without military. And the leaders of the world, especially the great ones, China, Russia, United States, they could create peace, you know, and stop this military build-up, but they don't want to. It's as simple. Mainly the Americans don't want to. That's the main obstacle right now. But that can also shift. But in the general attitude is, you know, not to give up weapons. You know, it's about power. Semjase. It is the only possibility to preserve peace and not to bring death and depravity over entire galaxies of the universe. But all this has to be told to the Earth human, because his conscious-based rationality is still very weakly developed. The Earth human must become familiar with the thought that his ancestors had brought the whole humankind and the Earth itself to the brink of ruin and had to partially evacuate the planet in a wild escape. She refers to things that happened in the past, and they will talk about that in later contact reports. But it should also serve him as a warning that greed for might and barbarism are deadly attributes. That this is the case has also been experienced by a second race in your solar system. In their boundless hatred and in their uncontrollable greed for might, they destroyed themselves right down to the last, and hardly any being survived the fight. They annihilated and destroyed their own planet in a tremendous explosion, and nothing remained of it but many thousands of asteroids that still orbit your sun today. She talks about the asteroid belt here. As a memorial to the deadly irrationality of human beings. Remnants of the once splendidly blooming planet Melona, also called Phaeton, which its inhabitants destroyed in their barbaric greed for might and irrationality. So they destroyed their planet by putting water into a volcano, and that ripped their planet apart. And I mean, we're talking about a big volcano and a lot of water, but that the water, of course, expanded violently, and the force was so strong that it destroyed the planet. Maybe they wanted to cool down the volcano, that it doesn't go off, but that wasn't a good idea, of course. And hopefully we will never do that. Billy, girl, that is very interesting. Do you know any more such things? Semjase, certainly, but that must be enough for today. Next time you shall learn more. So same for you. Next time you will learn more. And these first contacts are really important ones. There's already stuff that is like, many scientists would completely deny it, that this ever happened, you know, and also that people were living on Mars sometime in the past, and that is of course true, and deny that, of course, you know. It's always to keep you small in your thinking, you know, and keep you ignorant, you know. That's how the power game is played on this planet. And but you can get out if you read this material and think about it, investigate it, and you will see that more and more of what they talk about in the contact reports will come true or will be discovered. And but you can know it earlier than the others if you read it. So yeah, next time you will learn more.